Hey there, okay. What are we at? Part 3 of food rules, discussing why rules and control of food is a bad idea. Last time left off talking about basically hunger and how to deal with the argument that you got to make kids, young kids in particular, eat so that they don't get hungry and irritable later. And I was extolling the virtues of chocolate. All right, so to keep on going, page 23, food culture in a house with no rules. My basic approach to food with my kids is to treat them like I would house guests who didn't choose to visit. So this is a really good, I really like this analogy or example. When you have house guests, they have certain food preferences, right? And you generally honor those preferences. If they like to eat this or that, I make sure that's available to them because I want them to be comfortable and at ease when they're in a new, foreign, new, not typical place. When they, when you're in a new environment, it's anxiety provoking, maybe a little scary, not knowing how things work, not knowing, I don't know, the uncertainty is anxiety provoking. And one way to resolve that uncertainty or to minimize it or to reduce it is to make sure a person's comfortable, and having the food that they like is a major part of being comfortable. You want to make sure the house is the right temperature, they've got comfortable sleeping arrangements, make sure they have some privacy, make sure that their sleeping spaces to their liking, show them how the different things in the house work, right? Like when you have house guests, you're kind of treating them like children because fundamentally it's a knowledge thing, right? They don't know about this location. In their own home, there's a ton of not only just knowledge about the home, but inexplicit knowledge about their environment, the neighborhood, even knowing that everything is taken care of is a huge source of calm and peace and harmony, right? If you're uncertain about the food situation, even if the food situation is actually well in hand, if you don't know that, then that makes you a little nervous, right? If you go to visit somebody's house and you say, "Ooh, I don't know if they're gonna, I don't know, it's a dinner party or it's a party. Are they serving food? I'm a little nervous." If you know that these things are available, it's reassuring. That's the word. So that said, at the same time, when people come to visit, you're a gracious host. You are trying to accommodate and set them at ease and make them comfortable. You also try to show them how the house works, right? If you're going to take a shower, I show them how our little shower arrangement works, right? How do you get the water to come out of the faucet or out of the shower head? This and that, right? You show them how the house works. I'll show them how the thermostat works and things like that. That's essentially what you're doing with a child. You're showing them how the world works and you're making them comfortable in the meantime. I will do some extra work to make sure things are comfortable for you while you discover how the house works. So the main point is that doesn't mean that you are their slave. You are not your guest's slave. Just because you take an extra effort to make things comfortable for them and to accommodate them and to, reassure them, that doesn't mean you do whatever they ask. You're not their butler, you're not their maid, right? If they say, "I want, this for dinner," that doesn't mean you have to go out and buy that for them. If they say, I want filet mignon, right? I want tuna steaks. It's like, well, I'm not necessarily going to do that. And what requests that my guests make, which of those do I accommodate? That's a question. It's what you figure out as a host, and as a parent, you figure out, oh, is this request reasonable or is it unreasonable, right? If a kid wants a toy and it seems too expensive, right? And how expensive is too expensive? My kids will ask me, "Do we have enough money for this?" And I say, yes, technically we have enough money for this toy, but I say, but there's other things I want to spend the money on as well. not just this toy. So I think that toy is too expensive, right? Anyway, so you're not the slave. You're not your guest's slave. And what the balance is an interesting question, and that's what I would say parenting is. But the framework of accommodating guests, onboarding them to how the house works, and making allowances and otherwise for their lack of knowledge and skills and their potential for anxiety, nervousness, fear, etc. The other thing is that you certainly don't make the argument that you control your guests, right? You don't say, since you're dependent on me in my household, then therefore that gives me license to control you. And sometimes that does happen in those situations. A lot of times I'll want to share the kind of food that we eat with our guests, right? Or you go somewhere, you visit a friend, and they want to show you, they want to cook for you in a certain way. So on one hand, they want to accommodate the kind of foods that you eat, but on the other hand, they also want to show you the foods that they enjoy, right? And that's what's fun about visiting people, is to see new things and new ways of living. But none of these are compulsory, right? Hospitality means, hey, here's our coffee maker, but if you want coffee a different way, right? You want regular drip coffee, but we also have an espresso. Do you want, but if you don't want the Nespresso and you prefer the drip coffee or whatever, I don't know. If someone's vegetarian, you don't force them to eat, your favorite meat dish. You say, well, you're vegetarian, how can I, accommodate that, etc. So the hospitality example, I think, is very good because it focuses on knowledge and the resultant insecurity and anxiety and nervousness that come with that, and the delicacies of onboarding somebody to how your house works. The other thing that's interesting is that guests come willingly, right? You invite guests and they have the opportunity to say no and decline and stay home, whereas your kids did not get invited. They were actually forced into your home. You forced them to come visit. So it's really like kids are like having house guests that you forced to come visit and who can't leave because it was your choice. So I would say that is the main difference. You can boss around your house guests because they always have the opportunity to leave if they don't like how they're being treated. But your kids don't have that opportunity. So, all right, so that's the house guest example, and then I talk about pretty much the stuff. I make an effort to prepare meals that guests like, including wasting a bit of food and remaking meals that are rejected, but only to a point. Eventually, I'd throw in the towel and tell a picky eater, that's a house guest who's a picky eater, that they're on their own. Here's some options that I'm making available to you, but I'm not catering to your every whim. All of the food in our house is stored at knee height in open cabinets and in an easy to open freezer, so the kids can always see what's available. This includes cookies and ice cream, as well as more wholesome foods like noodles and fruit. There is no secret location for candy and no embargo on juice. Right? Like with guests, I would show them, here's where the coffee is. If you want to make your own coffee, go ahead. Have free reign in the refrigerator, right? And the freezer. Here's, as best you can, make them comfortable eating whatever food they want to eat. And I think, again, what is the purpose of that? The purpose of that is to relieve anxiety, to make things comfortable and pleasant. And the same things happen with kids, right? Eliminating the barriers to the food, making it reachable to them, making it visible to them, right? Our food is on open shelves. They can just see what's there. Just like house guests don't know where the bread is kept or where the coffee is kept if it's behind a cabinet door or something. If my kids want to skip a meal, I don't lecture them about eating now so that they don't get hungry later. Instead, if we are taking a trip, we bring plenty of snacks in case they get hungry. I'll often put breakfast in front of my kids and ask them to eat it in preparation for a trip, But if they refuse, I take care not to give the impression that I'm displeased. Yeah, so there's no, like house guests, there's no sense that my expectations are driving you to behave in the way that I want you to behave. I am disappointed when they don't eat the food that I make. That's very annoying. It's colossally annoying. I am disappointed when they don't eat in preparation for a trip, right? I want them to do these things, but I don't want them to do those things because I'm disappointed. I want them to do those things because they understand what the value of those things is. I want them to eat the food that I prepare because they recognize that it's a real pain in the butt to have to prepare multiple meals. But, and I will tell them that, I wish they would eat this or that food. I'll tell them these things. I'll just be careful not to do it in a kind of punitive way. I'll just say, it's a lot of work to make you a bunch of meals. It'd be really easy for me if you would eat what I prepared for you. So I think it's reasonable to ask kids for favors. I ask my kids for favors all the time, but I just phrase it as a favor, just like I would ask my wife for a favor. I wouldn't tell her, you must do this for me. I would just say, it would be really helpful if, you turn the music down or whatever it is. And bringing food on family trips is a big one. Just bringing extra food to go and having it available at all the time is so much easier than forcing a kid to eat in preparation for a trip. I just think it's just easier to have a bag of prepared food available. Oh, I was gonna say something right here and I forgot, so I'll just keep on reading and maybe I'll remember. Oh yeah, the example. So the examples I'm using here are not, again, these are not examples to say this is how it works because it works with my kids. Instead, I'm using the examples to show that I've thought through this, that I've tried these things out in the real world with young children, and that I'm not just speaking theoretically. Not that that adds credibility. What it does is it shows that these ideas have gone through several rounds of criticism, right? They've survived several rounds of criticism because I'm implementing them with young children. And it shows that if it works with some young children, it's possible that it will work with others, right? This is to counter the argument that it's impossible. If you let a kid have unfettered access to cookies, they're gonna eat nothing but cookies all day. If one kid has unfettered access to cookies but does not eat nothing but cookies all day, that proves that it's possible that this can succeed. It's possible, I'm not saying it's guaranteed. All right. We don't make our kids come to the table for family dinner. That's not to say we don't care about shared meals. We certainly value this bonding experience. In fact, we value it so much that we don't want our kids to develop resentment about coming to dinner or sharing family meals. So this is it again. It's not against rules per se. Rules are great. In fact, norms are great. The norm that the family eats together is precious. It's so precious that I don't want to contaminate it by the kid being resentful or otherwise hating joining in family mealtime. And that's it. I'm such a fan of rules that I reject their compulsory enforcement. And so this is neat. Our son is the one who really doesn't like to do family meals. The daughters, they're easygoing. They're very social. They like to sit down, and when we eat together, they want to eat with us, and they want to talk, and they want to, when their grandparents are up, they want to join in. But my son, but lately he is open to the idea and more. Well, not just open to the idea. He really likes it. He's gotten into this phase where he's telling stories. He likes to make up stories, and so we let him. He holds court and tells, regales the guests with his made-up stories and has some pasta while he does it, and it's fun and really cool. And it was worth the wait. It's been years that he didn't join most meals, and now when he does it because he really wants to and has fun, and he's particularly entertaining. It's amazing. All right, so I talked about that. One of the best consequences of giving kids free rein with food is that it eliminates a source of conflict among siblings. Our kids don't guard their treats from each other, nor do they taunt or tease each other when one of them has a treat that the other doesn't. If they want more, they can always have more. There's never a complaint that something isn't fair because no one has limitations around food. Instead, my kids take joy in each other's delights and preferences. Anytime I'm in the store with just my oldest, she loves to pick out the snacks that her brother and sister like. Another happy consequence is that I can eat whatever I want in front of them. I always feel bad eating sweets in front of kids who are restricted, so it's a relief not to have to hide my consumption in order to appear that I'm following the rules. So yeah, kids squabble over, right, when it's a fixed pie, it's a war of all against all, right? And if a fixed pie in the figurative sense, in the literal sense, if there is only one ice cream, right? If we go to the ice cream place and you can only have one ice cream, well then, when kid A finishes their ice cream, kid B might taunt them and say, haha, I've got my ice cream and no, you can't have any. And but my kids, since they can have as many ice creams as they want, they share with each other very freely. And they delight in each other's preferences. I think that's just so crucial, right? It's really nice when somebody likes a thing, even if you don't like it. It's nice to share their joy in that thing, to get them more of that thing. I don't know. I think that's just such a huge part of how we bond, especially over food, is enjoying food, being in the presence of somebody enjoying food. With no sense that somebody else is going to arbitrarily take it from them or confiscate it or limit it. Yeah, I think a lot of sibling rivalry is about, guarding your precious stash of candy or sweets or whatever it is. My kids don't have precious stashes because they can always have more of anything that they want. And they're never angling for more. I never battle with my kids about having more, obviously because I always give in. I mean, it's not a battle, but they are almost never pester me for more. And the opposite is true, right? Like when I said, when we buy bags of candy, they almost never finish a bag of candy. Or we have boxes of cookies and most of them go stale. We have to keep on buying them because the old ones go stale often. All right. All that said, I think there's something else going on here. Even if parents weren't concerned about health or diet or getting enough energy, many would still seek to control food. There is a sense among parents that kids should have limits. There's a sense among parents that kids should have limits set on things that they want because they want it, and regardless of what that thing is. I call this sense that it is wrong for a child to satisfy their wants the greedy child fallacy. This idea is not usually spelled out so explicitly by parents, but it has evolved over centuries and manifests so frequently that we take it for granted. I guess I didn't really flesh this out very much in that paragraph. I'll read the next paragraph. Controlling the knobs on a kid's access to the things they want can be used to control the child without resorting to more stigmatized methods such as physical and verbal abuse. Food is something that basically everyone wants, and so parents feel justified by the greedy child fallacy to control their kid's relationship with food. But it's no more wrong for a kid to want to control his own food choices than it is for any other person. All right. The idea that children are inherently and destructively greedy is used to justify all manner of control. So the greedy child fallacy, it's pretty much the idea that children's desires for things is because they're greedy, and that children's desires are wrong. They want more than they should want, and their wants should always be controlled. There's a sense among parents that kids should have limits set on things they want because they want it. Anything that you want, it doesn't matter what it is, it's not just about food. Anything that you want you should not be able to get it in excess. You should have limits set on your ability to get what you want. I think that's just an inherent view on anything, right? The more they want it, it starts to seem like it's bad. And food in particular is used as a means of control for other things in life, right? Food is the easiest example is that sweets are a reward, right? Do this and you can have a sweet. And then if anything that's used as a reward also can be used as a punishment, do this, if you don't, you're not gonna have any dessert, right? So dessert can be taken away as a punishment, and it can be given as a reward. And not having food rules means you abandon or give up the ability to use food to control kids. The folks that come and take care of our kids noticed that our kids, they are unable to motivate our kids with food. And they're kind of reflecting like, wow, it's interesting. It's not even a, it's not a tool that they have in their armamentarium. They can't say, oh, let's go how about we'll get an ice cream, and then that'll be the reason why you do X, Y, Z, because they get ice cream kind of anytime they want. We do often go to get ice cream, but it's just fun. It's not a special treat. It's not and it's never, I don't know. It doesn't work for motivating. It doesn't work as a reward because they get it anyway. And it's really interesting to just have that tool removed from the toolbox. All right. The greedy child fallacy, that was Logan's idea. He came up with that term, and I really think it's great. Unfortunately, it looks like we didn't develop it as much as I thought we did in my mind. It's basically reflexively calling kids' desires greedy, labeling them as greedy, and describing kids as inherently greedy little monsters. I think that's a disaster. I'll get to more of that later, though. The idea that children are inherently and destructively greedy is used to justify all manner of control, right? If you keep on taking away something that a person likes, just in order to exert control, that's what totalitarianism is, right? And no matter where it is, if you like it, okay, it's an opportunity for control, right? A kid gets into chess, okay, well, I can take your chessboard away, and now I can control you via control of your interest. You're really into video games, I'm going to take your video game away to make you, study more. Any behavior outcome that I want, I can achieve that by controlling some other thing that you like that's completely potentially independent. I think that is a nightmare, and it shows how control in one area bleeds into all areas. So just because you're controlling food, you say, well, this is a red line for me, right? Everything else, I want my kid to be autonomous and free, but food is so important because I am responsible for their health, right? And when they're older and if they're overweight, they're going to be mad at me for allowing them to develop habits that have made them overweight as an adult, right? That would be the argument. And so food I must control, but I'll let them use whatever they want, screens and sleep, and I'll unschool them and all that. The trouble is that by controlling food, you are showing your kid that you are potentially going to control other things, right? Every other part of life, the kid has a reason to think maybe mom and dad are going to try to control this. Whereas if you never do it, then they don't even think that that's a possibility of something that you might do. Okay. The parent isn't just right to deny access to things the child wants, but they have a duty to keep the child within some limitation or boundary, regardless of where that boundary is. This is the greedy child fallacy. After all, so the argument goes, children need to learn that you can't always get what you want. That makes me crazy. Yes, you can. I don't know if you can always get what you want, but you can often get what you want. and you can almost always get what you want, anything that's physically possible. You can't get a spaceship that goes faster than the speed of light, as Logan likes to point out, but you can get almost anything else that you want. And getting what you want is what life is. All day long, I am trying to figure out how to get what I want. And that's great. And as long as I'm not wanting bad things, and if I'm wanting bad things, well, it's important to find out what's bad about that thing. But if I don't consider it bad, then it's good that I get it. And so the same thing with kids. Getting what they want is great, and telling them that, well, life isn't fair and you can't always get what you want, I think is a disaster. This lesson is often delivered with tough love, despite the fact that it is irrational and not at all loving. So the you can't always get what you want lesson, I'm going to limit this thing because you can't always get what you want, is irrational and not at all loving. An unsatisfied desire is a problem, and all problems have solutions. We adults spend our days seeking solutions to all of our problems, and we very often succeed. Imagine consigning ourselves to this or that shortcoming because we can't always get what we want, right? That's like religious asceticism. And a lot of this, self-help stuff is to like pick something and limit it for yourself as some sort of character building exercise. Just arbitrarily, which is fine if you want to do it to yourself, but it's very different when somebody else does it to you arbitrarily. I don't see a lot of people assigning others to be their taskmaster and say, hey, can you deprive me of something so that I can build up my character? Just pick whatever you think it is, and then I will give you the power over me to limit that for me, and that's going to really build my character. There should be companies out there that offer taskmasters who will deprive adults of this or that desire as a service, if that were true. But I never see adults doing that. But adults will apply arbitrary limitations to their kids to build their character, to teach them the lesson that you can't always get what you want, and that immediate gratification is terrible. That's poppycock. Outsiders will typically chalk such a defeatist mindset up to lack of confidence, unfounded pessimism, or failure of imagination. In other words, to false ideas that one can overcome. What am I talking about here? Let me go back. We adults spend our days seeking solutions to all of our problems, and we very often succeed. Imagine consigning ourselves to this or that shortcoming because we can't always get what we want. Outsiders would chalk that defeatist mindset up to a lack of confidence or unfounded pessimism or a failure of imagination. In other words, if you saw somebody who is depriving themselves of things arbitrarily, you'd say, like, why isn't that person getting what they want? Why are they limiting themselves? And you would wonder about their self-confidence or their ability to imagine getting these things. And this is very common. A lot of times people are having this conversation with their parents in old age. Like, you're retired, you've saved up money. Mom, why won't you treat yourself to this or that? Why don't you guys go travel? Why don't you guys go, right? Why are you living this constricted life? Why are you trying to save or whatever it is? So a lot of times we're encouraging our friends to go get what you want, and kind of lamenting their lack of imagination, lack of drive, lack of initiative, etc. The same goes for kids. Why would we want to teach them that they should operate within arbitrary limitations? That's not a virtue, that's a vice. It's a mistake. It's a false idea that one can overcome. Why can we not get this particular thing? Moving on here. Why can we not get this particular thing that we want? Why must this particular shortcoming be accepted? Is it bad to want the thing in question? If so, why? To be sure, desires can be either good or bad. The reason behind the desire plays a huge role in determining a desire's moral character, not the mere fact that you can't always get what you want. It's a little confusing. I'll keep reading. The truth is, we should always try to get what we want. When our desires are damaging, it's crucial to understand why they are damaging so that we can change course and pursue new and better desires, not apologize for being desirous in the first place. If we block this process by needless fiat, we are stuck with a desire that grinds away in the background as we force ourselves to try to ignore its allure. All right, so what am I saying there? Getting what you want is not bad in and of itself, right? Getting what you want, assuming the thing that you want is good, then the getting of it is also good. Immediate gratification is good. If you want a thing, getting it now, getting it immediately is great. That there's nothing, right? If you want to exercise and then you go and exercise and doing it immediately and getting all the endorphins and all that immediately is wonderful. But the immediate gratification is stigmatized as habit forming, as all sorts, the stigma of immediate gratification. And what I'm saying here is that all the things that you want, assuming you want them for good reasons, everything that you want for a good reason is good to have. It's good to get. There are bad reasons for wanting things. It's not the getting of the bad things that's a problem. It's the confusion thinking that a bad thing is actually good. So what's important is to understand whether or not a desire is actually a good idea or not to prevent the prosecution of the desire. The way this plays out most of the time is that many desires conflict, right? So as I was saying, a desire to eat tasty ice cream conflicts with a desire to look good in a suit or a dress, right? So that doesn't mean that eating the ice cream is bad. It means that eating the ice cream, the good, the tastiness, etc. of eating the ice cream, and the good of looking good, both those things are good, and then they bump. Nothing bad, doesn't make one of them bad when they bump, it's just that they bump. And so instead of trying to eliminate the ice cream part, or say, I don't care how I look and become gluttonous, instead it's, how can I eat ice cream and remain thin, not get overweight? And obviously there's an infinite number of ways to solve that conflict that don't involve an arbitrary authority, that don't involve just simply writing one of these goods off. I wish this was clearer. This is really not that clear. Hopefully I address it later in the book. All right, I'm up to the conclusion of the food chapter. It's a very short conclusion. Conclusion. Fortunately, everything seems to be going well in our household. Our kids are all within normal weight. It still remains roughly a year ago, and it's still the case. Our daughters have palates at least as broad as that of a typical kid, and they genuinely enjoy all the foods they eat. Yeah, so my two daughters, my two twins don't have, now they're eating broadly as well, but mainly referring to my three older kids. So my two daughters eat a pretty wide range of foods, and their palates are authentic. They progressively refine their tastes rather than forming preferences based on their parents' expectations. I have not detected anything like a sugar high after they eat sweets. That's true. It really is true. I've never even noticed it. And I'm convinced this is one of the many tropes that have evolved to exert control. They do seem to get grumpy when they're hungry, but so do kids who are restricted by conventional food rules. Yeah, plenty of kids get hungry and grumpy, even with rules. And again, since they manage their eating without our input, they can make the connection between mood and food themselves. When someone is angry and irritable, they don't want to hear about how they should eat better or sleep more. And when they are pressured to fix the problem by eating or sleeping, this can trigger defensiveness that obscures rather than reveals the connection. As with adults, so with kids. So this is the idea that kids acting irritable or grumpy or being a pain, and you say, you know what, it's because you haven't eaten. I do this a lot. even though I think it's a bad idea. I make this mistake a lot. I try to say it gently and not with this attitude like, well, you should have eaten. You should eat more. You know what? You're hungry. You know what? You're tired. You should go to bed early. You should, let's go to bed now, or whatever it is. It's whenever I've suggested this to my kids, they have always rejected it. And I know whenever this has been suggested to me, I've felt it to be patronizing and condescending, even when I was a kid. Right? Oh, you know me better than I know myself. Just such an obnoxious thing to say to somebody. Even if it's true, it's still insulting, right? So I think it's reasonable to maybe suggest, but instead of suggesting food as a remedy for being grumpy, I'll just prepare it. I'll just put it in front of a kid. That's why I like ice cream so much. It's so easy to put in front of somebody. You can get rejected or accepted quickly. If the kid doesn't want to eat it, you just put it back in the freezer. If they do want to eat it, then maybe the mood gets better and you don't have to have this back and forth. All right, that was fun. Food is over. The most controversial topic of the entire book. People freaked out about the Oreos. It was the first chapter and a lot of people just put the book down. There was this many pages and a lot of people said this is just insanity. But I think those people would have been turned off by the rest of it anyway. And next is sleep. Looking forward to it. All right, thanks for listening. I guess I should plug at the end of these. The book there's a free PDF on the website, www.thesovereignchild.com, and audiobook and paperback are on Amazon. All right, till next time.